The devastating crash that changed everything. Imagine a boy returning from the dead with a message straight from Jesus. Landon Whitley's story is not just incredible, it's a testament to divine power and love. With 23 metal plates in his head and one eye blind, Landon stands before us not just alive, but thriving. How? The answer lies in a profound message he received from Jesus during his near-death experience. This message is about to challenge your faith deeply. On October 19, 1997, the Whitley family faced a nightmare. An ambulance collided with their car, instantly upending their lives. Little Landon, just 8 years old, was at the heart of this disaster. His father, Andy, perished. Landon was left battling for survival. Before that day, Landon was an ordinary boy. He played, laughed, and lived like any other child. But God had a different plan, one that would take him to the brink of death and back. What followed will make you question everything you thought you knew about life, death, and the afterlife. Are you ready to discover the truth Landon brought back from the other side? Between life and death, Landon's journey begins. The moments post-crash were chaotic. Sirens blared as rescuers scoured the wreckage. When they found Landon, he was unresponsive. The paramedics acted quickly, determined to revive him. But Landon's journey had just begun. As the ambulance sped towards the hospital, Landon's heart stopped. Again, medical staff fought to restore him. They succeeded, but the struggle was far from over. At the hospital, doctors gave Landon's mother, Julie, grim news. Her husband, Andy, had died, and now her son was fighting for his life. Julie's world was unraveling. How could this be happening? Doctors were blunt. If he survives, they said, he won't walk, talk, or eat properly. Julie was devastated. Her little boy might never be the same. As Julie wrestled with grief and fear, something extraordinary was happening to Landon. His heart stopped 3 times, at the crash site, in the ambulance, and at the hospital. Each time, medical staff revived him. You might wonder, 3 clinical deaths? How is that possible? It defies medical understanding, but Landon's story transcends science. Each near-death experience took Landon further into an incomprehensible realm, a place where time and space were different. He would encounter something or someone that would alter everything. Julie, meanwhile, questioned her faith. Why, God? She wondered. But even in despair, she kept praying, pleading with God to save her son. Little did she know, her prayers were being answered in unimaginable ways. For 2 weeks, Landon was in a coma. Doctors warned of severe brain damage if he awoke. Julie clung to hope, trusting in God's plan for her son. Then, against all odds, Landon woke up. The doctors were astonished. Not only was he awake, but he showed no brain damage. It was nothing short of miraculous. But the real miracle wasn't just Landon's survival. It was what he experienced during those heart-stopping moments. His lifeless body was a vessel for an incredible journey. He witnessed things no 8-year-old should describe. He encountered beings beyond earthly logic. And he received a message, so powerful and profound that it would define his life. A glimpse of heaven, Landon's supernatural encounter. Brothers and sisters, let me share Landon's remarkable journey during those moments of clinical death. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a genuine experience, shared by a child who glimpsed beyond the veil. Landon described heaven in a way that will take your breath away. He spoke of golden roads shining like nothing on earth. Streets paved with gold, just as Revelation describes. But there was more. Landon saw radiant beings of light moving in perfect harmony. Some may wonder, how could an 8-year-old know these things? God works in mysterious ways. He chose Landon to bring back a message, opening his eyes to heavenly wonders. Landon didn't just see heaven, he met people there, including Jesus himself. Imagine the Son of God standing before this child, gazing with love and compassion. Landon also saw awe-inspiring angels, not the cherubic figures on cards, but powerful beings ready for divine tasks. Moreover, Landon met family members he'd never known, He recognized them despite never having seen them before. In heaven, Landon said, "You know your own." There's a connection beyond earthly comprehension. Consider this: an 8-year-old describing encounters most adults can't fathom. For Landon, it was real. It left him with a peace and certainty about the afterlife that many seek their whole lives. But this wasn't merely a heavenly tour. God had a purpose for Landon's journey. Jesus gave him a message, so important it would shape the rest of his life. The miraculous awakening. Brothers and sisters, let me recount the darkest hours of this ordeal. Doctors didn't sugarcoat the situation. They painted a dire picture, one that could shake any parent. If Landon survives, they said, he might never be the same. They spoke of brain damage and a life of struggle. Even the strongest faith could waver. But Julie, bless her heart, held on to hope. She prayed incessantly, asking God to save her son. And God was listening. For 2 weeks, Landon lay motionless. The machines kept him alive, while his spirit embarked on an unimaginable journey. Doctors prepared Julie for the worst. They discussed long-term care and challenges. But God had a different plan. On the 14th day, something extraordinary happened. Landon opened his eyes as if waking from a nap rather than a life-and-death struggle. But it wasn't just waking up. Landon emerged without brain damage. Doctors were astonished, running tests to find signs of trauma, but there were none. It was as if his brain had been miraculously shielded. Reflect on this. 3 clinical deaths, 2 weeks in a coma, injuries that would disable most adults. Yet, Landon was awake, alert, and defying medical predictions. Doctors deemed it impossible, lacking a scientific explanation. But we know better. With God, all things are possible. The true miracle was Landon's awakening with profound knowledge and experiences. When he looked at his mother and spoke his first words, he said, "I saw him in heaven." These words were just the beginning. Landon's revelations about heaven, Jesus, and the divine would pour forth, reshaping everything. Impossible knowledge, proof of a divine experience. Brothers and sisters, prepare for a revelation that will shake your core. When Landon woke up, he didn't just open his eyes, he opened a window to heaven. Landon spoke of things he couldn't possibly know. He told his mother, Julie, "I saw Daddy in heaven." It might seem expected, given the crash, but then he revealed something astonishing. "Mama," he said, "I saw my brother and sister in heaven too." Julie had never told Landon about her lost babies. How could he know about them? How could he have seen them? Landon described siblings he'd never met, recognizing them despite never seeing them on Earth. "I knew they were my siblings," he said, "even though no one had ever told me." Julie was overwhelmed. Her child spoke of babies she never held. It was both a shock and a comfort. Some might think maybe he overheard something, but Julie had kept that pain secret. Landon's knowledge couldn't have come from anywhere but divine revelation. Julie's faith was shaken by the loss of her husband and near loss of her son, but Landon's impossible knowledge offered a message from heaven. It was as if God was showing Julie that her lost babies were safe in his care, awaiting her in heaven. This wasn't just comfort, it was proof. Proof that Landon had truly visited the other side, affirming the reality of heaven and Jesus. Julie's faith, once in turmoil, began to rebuild. She saw that perhaps God had a greater plan through this suffering. "I was very angry," Julie later admitted. "I'm not sure why this happened." But Landon's words began to heal her heart. You may wonder, is this possible? With God, all things are. Landon's story is just beginning. What Landon saw and experienced wasn't just about reunions. Jesus had a message for him, so profound it would change everything. The terrifying message from Jesus. Brothers and sisters, let me share the divine message Landon received from Jesus. This was no ordinary message. It was a divine calling that would transform the young boy's life. When Landon stood before Jesus in heaven, it wasn't just for a look around. Jesus had a purpose for him. He told Landon to return to Earth. You might think, of course, he had to come back to share his story. But it was more than that. Jesus didn't just send Landon back. He gave him a mission. Jesus instructed Landon to be a good Christian. Imagine hearing that directly from Jesus. The gravity of those words, the responsibility, they're overwhelming. But that wasn't all. Jesus tasked Landon with sharing the reality of Jesus and heaven with the world. Can you imagine? An 8-year-old boy given the mission to spread God's word. Some might wonder why Jesus chose a child for such a task. Matthew 18:3 tells us, "Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Childlike faith is pure and powerful. This message was daunting. Landon wasn't just given a heavenly vision. He was given a divine mission that could impact many lives. Landon said it best, "I just want people to realize that Jesus is real. There is a heaven, there are angels. These aren't mere words. This is a child who saw it all firsthand." Consider the weight on a young boy's shoulders to know beyond doubt that our beliefs are real. To have seen Jesus and heaven is overwhelming. Landon embraced his calling. He understood that his journey was not just about him, but about bringing hope to a world in need. Landon's message reminds us that our faith is not just comforting stories or moral lessons. It is reality. If a young boy can face such a responsibility with faith, what's our excuse? If Landon can share this message, how can we remain silent? Certainly. Here's a revised version of your text, maintaining the word count and titles as requested. A new mission, spreading hope and faith. Brothers and sisters, let me share how God transforms even the darkest moments into sources of hope. Following Landon's miraculous recovery, he and his mother Julie didn't return to their old lives. Instead, they turned that earth-shattering event into a divine mission. Landon's journey to heaven and back wasn't just for him, it was meant for all of us. God gave him a glimpse of paradise to share with the world, and that's exactly what Landon and Julie set out to do. They began sharing their story beyond just friends and neighbors, reaching out to churches, community events, and even TV. Imagine the bravery it took for this young boy to say, "I've been to heaven, I've seen Jesus, and I'm here to tell you about it." Landon embraced his calling wholeheartedly, understanding that his experience was about offering hope to a world that's lost and searching for faith. You might think that's a heavy burden for a child. True, but remember Isaiah 11:6, "And a little child shall lead them." God often uses the most unexpected messengers. Julie, bless her, went through her own faith journey. She said, "I didn't understand in 1997 why God didn't send an angel, but now I believe angels were protecting us, living out God's plan." Julie's faith was tested in unimaginable ways. She lost her husband, nearly lost her son, and saw him struggle with his injuries. Yet, she came to see God's greater purpose. She realized that the guardian angels she prayed for were present all along, though not in the way she expected. God protected and guided them amidst tragedy. That realization transformed Julie. From questioning God to praising him for his wisdom, she said, "It is a huge blessing to watch my child tell others about Jesus." Consider this, a woman who faced unimaginable trials calls it a blessing. That's the power of faith. That's what happens when you surrender to God's plan. Landon and Julie's story spread rapidly, inspiring and sometimes even challenging people. They kept sharing their testimony, spreading hope, and reminding others that heaven is real and Jesus is waiting for us. Their story became a beacon of light for those struggling with their faith, affirming that God is still in the miracle business, still speaking to his children, still showing us glimpses of his glory. But this was more than just a compelling story. It was about changing lives. Those who heard Landon's testimony began re-evaluating their own lives, contemplating what truly matters and where they're headed after this earthly journey. Living proof, Landon's life after death. Now, brothers and sisters, let's discuss Landon's life today. This boy who touched heaven and returned is living proof of God's power and love. Landon didn't return unscathed. He bears the marks of his journey, 23 metal plates in his head, a reconstructed nose, and lost vision in his left eye. These aren't just injuries, they are reminders. Each day, Landon feels those metal plates and sees the scars. They are constant reminders of his brush with death and his encounter with Jesus. But Landon doesn't let these challenges deter him. He lives a life as close to normal as possible after such an experience. He's resilient, determined, and a fighter. You might wonder, how does someone live a normal life after seeing heaven? Landon would tell you, it's not easy, but faith makes it possible. You may think, this sounds too incredible to be true. I understand, but ask yourself, doesn't Landon's story align with what we know from the Bible? The Bible speaks of life after death, of being in Jesus' presence. Landon's experience confirms this. His story isn't just a tale, it's a testament to what we believe. In 2 Corinthians 5:8, Paul writes, "We are confident, I say, and would prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord." Landon lived that verse. He was away from his body, at home with the Lord, and then he came back to share his story. But Landon's story isn't just about what he saw in heaven, it's about how he lives now. Each day, he's a testament to the reality of Jesus and heaven. His life is a message to the world. Think about it. A young man who should have died, yet he's alive, sharing his story, touching lives. That's not luck, it's God's hand at work. Julie, Landon's mother, expressed it best. She said, "It is a huge blessing to watch my child tell others about Jesus." That's what it's all about, using our experiences, even painful ones, to glorify God and spread his message. You might be skeptical, wondering what makes Landon's story special among many near-death experiences. Fair question. We shouldn't believe everything we hear, but Landon's story isn't just about bright lights or peace. He came back with knowledge he couldn't have otherwise, met family members he'd never known, received a direct message from Jesus, and lives out that message every day. Not alone, other encounters with the divine. Now, brothers and sisters, Landon's story is powerful, but he's not alone in such experiences. Others have had similar divine encounters, glimpses of heaven, and returned to share their tales. Consider Dr. Mary Neal, a spine surgeon who drowned in a kayaking accident. During her time underwater, she experienced heaven and met Jesus. Like Landon, she returned with a message and a purpose. Or think of Colton Burpo, a young boy who underwent emergency surgery. During his operation, he claims he visited heaven, saw Jesus, and met his great-grandfather who had passed away before Colton was born. These stories aren't isolated. They're part of a larger pattern documented and studied by researchers and theologians. Dr. Jeffrey Long, a radiation oncologist, has collected thousands of near-death experiences from around the world. He found striking similarities among these accounts, regardless of age, culture, or religion. You may wonder, how do these stories compare to Landon's? Common threads run through these experiences. Many report overwhelming peace and love, a presence of a bright light, often identified as Jesus or God. Landon felt this too, didn't he? That sense of comfort and acceptance in the presence of our Lord. Many also describe meeting deceased loved ones or spiritual beings, recognizing them instantly, even if they never met them in life. Recall how Landon recognized his unborn siblings, but Landon's story is unique. Many near-death experiences are brief, mere glimpses of the other side. Landon, however, had multiple encounters. He died 3 times, each time delving deeper into the spiritual realm. And the message from Jesus, that's exceptional. While many return with a general purpose, Landon received a specific mission: to be a good Christian and share the reality of Jesus and heaven with others. What does this mean for us as believers? It's a powerful reminder of our faith's reality. These experiences align with biblical teachings about heaven and confirm our beliefs. There's more to existence than this earthly life. These stories also challenge us to live with eternity in mind. If heaven is real and Jesus is waiting for us, shouldn't it change how we live our lives now? If you knew you'd meet Jesus face to face tomorrow, how would that alter your choices, priorities, and relationships? Near-death experiences are more than intriguing stories. They're wake-up calls, reminders that our time on earth is short and what we do here matters for eternity. Faith strengthened, lessons for believers. Brothers and sisters, Landon's story isn't just for marveling. It's a powerful lesson for all believers, a wake-up call about what truly matters in this life and the next. You might wonder, what does this mean for me as I haven't been to heaven and back. Landon's experience has implications for all of us. Firstly, it affirms our belief heaven is real. It's not just a comforting thought, it's a real place awaiting us. And Jesus? He's there, ready to welcome us home. Knowing heaven is real should influence how we live now. If we believe we'll stand before Jesus one day, shouldn't it affect our choices, priorities, and relationships? If you knew, without a doubt, you'd meet Jesus face to face, would you still hold on to grudges? Would you pursue worldly success at the expense of family or faith? Landon's story reminds us our time on earth is short. We need to make it count, living with eternity in mind. Some might say that's easier said than done. True, living a godly life in a fallen world is challenging, but Landon and Julie's story shows it's possible. Remember Julie's struggle with faith after the accident. Angry and confused, she questioned God, yet she persevered, prayed, and received a miracle. That's the power of unwavering faith. It moves mountains, brings comfort in dark times, and even restores life with a message from Jesus himself. How can we apply these lessons? Strengthen our relationship with God through prayer, Bible study, and fellowship. Seek God's will in all we do. Live with purpose. Landon was given a mission to be a good Christian and share Jesus' reality. We may not have had a near-death experience, but we share the same mission, to be witnesses for Christ. Keep our focus on eternity. This world is temporary, but heaven is forever. Keeping that perspective changes everything. Trust God, even when his plan is unclear. Julie didn't understand why the accident happened, but she trusted him. Look how God turned tragedy into testimony. Landon's story is a reminder that faith isn't about rules and rituals. It's about a real relationship with a living God who loves us deeply. So ask yourself, are you living as though heaven is real? Are your choices based on eternity? Are you trusting God even when life doesn't make sense? A call to faith, the impact of Landon's message. Brothers and sisters, Landon's story is more than one boy's miraculous journey. It's a testament to God's love and power, impacting lives across the nation. When Landon and Julie shared their story, something incredible happened. People listened deeply, feeling the truth in their souls. I've heard from those who say Landon's testimony changed their lives. One woman said, "I was losing my faith, thinking God had abandoned me, but hearing Landon's story felt like God was speaking directly to me, showing he's still here, still working miracles." Another man, who had been avoiding God, fell to his knees in church after hearing Landon's encounter. He gave his life to Christ that day. That's the power of a true testimony. You might ask, what about skeptics? What about those who don't believe? Landon's story breaks through even the hardest hearts. A doctor I know, focused on science and skeptical of faith, was deeply shaken by Landon's account. The details couldn't be explained away, prompting him to question everything he knew. Landon's story does more than inspire believers. It challenges doubters, making them wonder, what if there's more to life? What if heaven is real? That's what we need today, a reminder that God is active and involved. Landon's experience shows that God isn't distant. He's here, working in ways beyond our imagination. Consider this. God turned a tragedy, a devastating accident, into a powerful testimony. He used a young boy to deliver a message of hope to thousands, even millions. That's our God, a God who transforms our darkest moments for his glory, who brings life from death, hope from despair. Remember, Landon's story isn't just about his experience. It's about what can happen in your life. It's a challenge to deepen our faith and live with purpose. Are you living as though heaven is real? Are your choices based on eternity? Are you sharing your faith or keeping it to yourself? Landon's mission was to tell others about heaven. We all share that mission with the Word of God and the Holy Spirit within us. So what's holding you back? Why not live out your faith boldly and share the good news with a world in need? Landon's story reminds us that our time on earth is limited. We must make every moment count for eternity. It's time to stop merely going through the motions. It's time to live as though we truly believe what we profess. Let God use your life, your story, your struggles to bring others to Him. Living the message, a challenge to viewers. Brothers and sisters, Landon's story isn't just a tale. It's a wake-up call from heaven. Jesus tasked Landon with being a good Christian and sharing the truth about heaven. Now, I ask you, are you living as though heaven is real? Are you making choices based on eternity, not just immediate gratification? Consider, if you knew you'd meet Jesus face to face tomorrow, would you live any differently today? Would you let go of grudges? Would you stop chasing worldly things? It's time to move beyond superficial faith and truly live it. We all share Landon's mission to tell others about